The morning I came back to my father's lake cabin, the key he pressed into my palm the day he died didn't fit the lock. That was the moment something inside me snapped. The air smelled like pine and sap. The dock lines creaked in a soft breeze, and the water looked the same glassy blue I grew up on. But the brass lock on the door, my father's door, had been swapped out. The cedar planks he oiled every Memorial Day were scuffed with black marks from rolling suitcases. A paper tag hung from the porch light that said, "Welcome Lake House guests." In bubbly font, I stepped back, stared at it, and felt heat rise under my collar. I hadn't been here in 4 years. Life dragged me to other places, work, hospital rooms, settling Dad's affairs by phone and envelope. I told myself the cabin would wait. Dad's voice would still be in the boards, the way he said, "Easy there, son," when the motor coughed. But now someone had turned our quiet porch into a check-in desk. A white crossover pulled up like it had a reservation. A couple in matching windbreakers hopped out. The woman held up her phone. "Hi, is this the Lakeview Cozy? Where early Corins said we could drop our bags?" I stared at them, then at the key in my hand. "Who's Karen?" "Property manager," the man answered, cheerful. Like we were all at a bake sale. Before I could say another word, a familiar voice cut across the gravel. "He's the caretaker," it said, sweet as cinnamon with a rot in the middle. I turned and saw Karen from across the road. Karen of the ever-trim hedges and the clipboard at every HOA meeting when I was a kid. "Don't worry, folks," she chirped to the couple. "Check-in's smooth. We upgraded the linens." "The caretaker?" said. "Karen, this is my father's cabin." She smiled, but her eyes were little polished stones. "And the HOA's responsibility, while it was, abandoned." I could hear my voice harden. "My name is on the deed, which the HOA filed a maintenance lien against after years of non-compliance," she sang. "We secured the property, made improvements, and you can settle the fees with the board." The couple looked at me like I was keeping them from their anniversary. My hands were steady, but my chest felt like a taut rope. "Unlock the door, Karen." "Ah!" The couple hovered, unsure. Karen tapped her phone. "Sheriff's on his way? Let's keep this civil." I walked to the porch post where Dad carved a barely visible AR plus S79 the first summer he brought Mom here. I ran my thumb over it. The mark was still there. My father's laugh lived in that scar, and Karen was telling me it belonged to the HOA. I stepped off the porch and called the county recorder's office from the gravel, because that's what Dad taught me. Don't shout first, bring paper. I gave the clerk my parcel number. She put me on hold. Across the drive, Karen smiled at the couple and snapped a photo of the lake like she owned the light. The recorder came back. "Sir, title is still in your name," she said. "No transfer recorded. We do see a notice of an HOA lien filed last spring. Is the lien satisfied?" "Not according to our record." "Does a lien let them change locks and rent it out?" "I can't give legal advice," she said carefully. "Which is how you know you're right." A sheriff's charger rolled up, tires crunching. The deputy stepped out young, polite, with a posture that said he still believed in brochures. I introduced myself and explained, "My father's property." My key didn't fit. "Strangers inside, HOA claims abandonment." Yeah, Karen launched into her script. "We acted in good faith, deputy. It was at risk of vandalism. The board authorized me to stabilize and recoup expenses through short-term rentals. We notified the owner of record. Wherever he was," I looked at the deputy. "My mailing address hasn't changed. My phone number is the same one my father put on the fishing license he kept in that kitchen drawer. If they sent anything, it wasn't to me." The deputy rubbed his neck. "This is civil," he said, which is what deputies say when someone is lying but wearing nice shoes. "I can't decide title, but nobody's going inside until we figure this out." Behind us, the couple climbed back into their car and drove off, disappointed vacationers. Karen watched them go, like money slipping downstream. Then she snapped at me. "You're costing the HOA hundreds. You're stealing my father's house." She adjusted her sunglasses. "Then prove it." I looked past her, across the lake, where the maples were already turning. Dad always said the light here told the truth, cold and clean. I breathed it in. I will, I said. That night, I didn't drive back to town. I parked across the road in my truck and sat beneath the open windows of my own cabin, listening to the tick of the cooling engine and the loons calling like hollow flutes. Somewhere inside, in the drawer beside the oven, was the deed Dad always kept with a rubber band around it. I could almost picture his handwriting on the folder, "Cabin don't lose." I closed my eyes and remembered his hand scar on the knuckle from the outboard prop, veins like river lines. "Easy there, son," he'd say. "Water remembers. So do we." The porch light I paid for flickered, and I made myself a simple promise. I was going to turn that light back into ours. Morning brought coffee from the only diner in town, the one with the cracked Eagles schedule on the wall, and a waitress who'd known me since I was 12. "Heard you're back," she said, eyebrows up. "Heard Karen's already got your blood pressure up." "Hasn't changed a bit," I said. She slid me a to-go cup. "You talked to Earl?" she asked. "He does titles now since the marina closed." Earl still had shoulders like a dock post and a mind like a filing cabinet. He set me up in a back office that smelled like paper and motor oil. "Let's walk through," he said, spreading the parcel map across the desk. "HOA covenants end here," his pencil traced, stopping a good 30 feet short of our cabin. "Your dad's place is older than the HOA. He never opted in." I blinked. "So their rules don't even reach our porch?" "Not unless he signed a joinder." He looked over his glasses. "He didn't." Earl pulled the lien notice. "They filed a maintenance lien against a property they don't govern," he said, hands steady. "And they posted a so-called notice of vacancy. They claim you couldn't be reached." He held up an address I hadn't lived at in 15 years. "This is the neighbor's house from back when your folks were alive. Karen's cousin bought it." My jaw tightened. "So the HOA noticed me by mailing the neighbor who's on their Christmas list?" Earl leaned back. "Happens when people think nobody will check." "We'll check." We drove straight to the clerk's counter. I pulled certified copies of the deed Dad's will, the plat that put our lot outside the HOA's boundary, and the lack of any joinder. We made a stack like a fence. Earl scribbled a demand letter to the HOA president, Barry Hinton, the kind of man who wears polos in winter, and we hand-delivered it. Barry met us in the HOA office, which used to be a bait shop until they hung a seal and called it a headquarters. Karen was already inside, arms crossed, lips flat. Barry skimmed the packet and did the little cough people do when their story springs a leak. "We, acted based on our understanding," he said. "Your understanding doesn't move survey lines," Earl said. "You filed a lien without jurisdiction and changed locks on a property you don't control. You rented it out. That's criminal trespass and civil conversion. You'll provide keys today and an accounting by Friday." Karen laughed once, sharp. "Do you think this scares me?" "The board voted." "The board can't vote the lake to run uphill," Earl said. "It's still downhill," I spoke quietly. "My father kept a flag on that porch." "You took it down." Barry glanced at Karen. "We removed." "Unauthorized items?" "My father's flag was unauthorized now?" Karen shrugged. "Design guidelines, no flags on porches." Earl tapped the plat. "Design guidelines, don't cross this line." "You two did." "We filed a police report for the lock change and unauthorized entry. The deputy from the day before met us. More careful now. If title's clear and the HOA lacks jurisdiction," he said, "the rental activity is a problem, and the money." I asked. "We'll note it," he said. "Get a civil order?" By afternoon, the locksmith we hired since Barry misplaced the keys snapped the fancy lock out in 15 seconds. The old cedar door swung. The first smell that hit me was lemon oil and lake air. Then, laundry detergent that wasn't ours. An inventory list lay on the counter in a laminated sleeve. Lakeview, cozy checkout tasks. My stomach turned. The kitchen drawer was still there, but the folded papers had been shuffled into a plastic file caddy labeled Owner Docs. At least someone had the decency to keep them close. Under the old rubber band was Dad's neat script, signed and notarized 27 years ago. I held it like it was living tissue in the bedroom. The nightstand had been moved angled toward the window like a brochure photo. Beneath it, I found a scuffed spot where the leg had bit into the floorboards the way it had for 40 summers. Little things tell the truth. The house remembered. On the porch, Earl photographed the welcome guest tag, the QR code for booking the printed note parties sheet. He smiled sadly. They got organized while they forgot the law. As we stepped back down the stairs, a minivan rolled to a stop. A woman hopped out, hands full of beach towels. "We're here for the 2 o'clock. She stopped when she saw me. "You're not Karen." "No," I said. "I'm the owner." Her face fell. "We already paid." I nodded. "You'll get your money back." Karen charged across the road like a siren had gone off. "You can't cancel on the same day," she snapped. "There's a policy." Earl lifted his hand. "The policy today is the law." The woman looked between us. Then at the porch where Dad carved his initials that summer with Mom. "I'm sorry," she said softly, like she'd stepped into something sacred by mistake. She hugged her kids and loaded the towels back into the minivan. As they pulled away, I felt something unclench in my chest. That night, I rehung Dad's flag. I stood there a long time, watching it move. On the lake, somebody cut their outboard and drifted, letting the evening take them. The porch boards hummed with familiar sounds, the tick of bugs, the slap of little waves against pilings. I poured a coffee and set Dad's deed on the table. Across the road, Karen's blinds quivered. Some fights are loud. Ours was going to be quiet paper and steady hands, line by line until the truth stood taller than the lie. The emergency hearing was set for Friday in the old brick courthouse where Dad once fought a property line dispute with a neighbor and won with a Polaroid of a fence and a handshake. Different judge now. Same wood benches. Same smell of dust and heat. Karen sat at the table with Barry and a lawyer who oversmiled. Earl and I sat with our stack plat, deed, survey, clerk certified. I brought the flag too, folded neatly in a bag. Not evidence, just a reminder. The judge listened. He asked 3 questions that cut to bone. Where in the covenants is this parcel described? Where is the joinder? Where is the court order authorizing entry? Barry coughed. The lawyer deflected. Karen glared at me like a cat that fell in a bathtub and blamed the water. The judge signed a temporary restraining order, no further entry by the HOA or its agents, immediate return of keys, preservation of financial records, and an accounting of all rental income within 10 days. If this property lies outside your association, he said, your lien is a nullity. If you entered without authority, that is trespass. If you rented it, that is conversion of use. We will sort it out at a preliminary injunction. Outside, cameras from the local station waited because small towns turn on stories like this, neighbor against neighbor, HOA against history. A reporter stuck a mic toward me. I kept it simple. This cabin is my father's legacy, I said. We just want to be left alone. That weekend, neighbors came by like boats drifting close to bump fenders. Old Mr. Schultz from the Point brought a box of rusty tackle he swore. Dad lent him in '98. A kid from 3 houses down left a drawing of the cabin with our flag Cramblue Lake below. And then there was Linda Barry's wife who walked over with a Tupperware of brownies and eyes apologizing for a man who'd forgotten his bearings. I told him this was wrong, she whispered at the steps. Karen pushes people. He listens to whoever talks the loudest. Tell him to listen to the judge, I said gently. By the time accounting came in, it read like a confession. Spreadsheets, booking calendars, payouts to an account that wasn't even the HOAS. It was Karen's little LLC for efficiency.
Ekchi texted Barry in messages the court later pulled.
There were cleaning fees paid to her nephew, landscaping to a cousin, and late-night bookings that violated even the HOA's own weekend rules. Greed rarely keeps neat ledgers. It simply repeats itself until it's loud enough for anyone to hear, at the preliminary injunction. The judge did more than extend the order. He referred the matter to the county attorney. A month later, charges: criminal trespass, fraud, and theft by deception. I didn't cheer. I just sat on the porch and breathed while the flag moved in a wind that didn't care about any of it. Barry resigned. A new board formed. They came over with pie and humility and asked what it would take to make peace. I told them the cabin wasn't theirs to make peace about. It was ours. But I also said something else. The rental money, every penny would go. 2 repairs at the public dock and a scholarship in my father's name for kids who studied forestry or fisheries. Dad believed in teaching people who would take care of the water. They agreed. Sometimes people remember themselves. Karen pled to a lesser count, paid restitution, and moved away. Her house sold to a young family with a kid who rides a red bike with streamers. The lake forgives who listens to it long enough. I fixed the porch. I sanded the scuffs and oiled the boards until they shined like new bread crust. I put the nightstand back where the floor remembered it. I took the welcome guest tag and burned it in the fire pit. It's not out of rage, but because pine smoke belongs to evenings with your own. I kept the laminated checklist tucked behind the cabinet like a warning label I hoped my kids would never need. One evening, near the end of the season, I sat on the steps with coffee. The sheriff's siren wailed once in the distance and fell quiet. Someone, somewhere, had a small emergency that would soon be a story told on another porch. I looked out at the water. It lay there calm and wide, like a promise no one could rewrite. I ran my fingers over the carved R+S79. The groove is shallower than I remember, worn by weather and teenagers' thumbs and life, but it's there. My father's initials, my mother's proof, not on paper this time, but in wood and time for the first time in years. The cabin sounded like itself, floorboards settling, coffee maker hissing, a screen door whining in that particular way it always has. I thought about all the days I'd lost to busyness and noise, about all the things Karen had tried to make me forget. It didn't work. The lake remembered. So did I. Sometimes standing up for what's right isn't loud. It's steady. It's paper and patience, neighbors and truth, and the quiet courage to come home and stay put. Viewer connection. Have you ever had an HOA or a neighbor overstep like this? Tell me what happened and how you handled it. I read every comment. If you believe family places deserve quiet justice, hit subscribe. Around here, we stand our ground and we stand together.